Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So
Well, it's a beautiful Monday morning from here in Lagos. I'm Kairo Kikelu.
Oh, beautiful again. I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome.
You know, there are some things we take for granted. Today's Monday. A lot of people go to work.
What happened?
Yes. Well, yes, some other people aren't at work and school as well. You see that in a lot of northern states at this point.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
yeah, don't worry, you get to see.
Yeah, we'll get to
Yeah,
see
don't worry.
Mapwe in a moment. Okay, good morning, Mapwe.
Oh, good morning from Abuja. They'll try, but they'll not succeed.
I second
I
that.
don't know what's going on, but
yeah.
good morning from the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Oh, yes, it's refreshing.
So whatever it is, whatever you all want.
Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness. So, I mean, so students, especially very young children, you remember the talk about northern governors banning, was that street begging and putting a ban on this Almajere system and trying to ensure that children actually get proper education. And that was big talk then. A lot of people applauded the northern state governor saying, way to go. I mean, it's been a long time coming. A lot of children, millions of children have been out of school because of this system, and it was commendations really for the northern governors at that time. And then we saw children being, let me use a term, deported to different states, saying, well, you don't belong to this state, this is where you came from, so go back to the state where you came from. And that got quite some flax at that time. But you know, months and months, a lot of months after that, something has cropped up, and I think it's important to give an update to Nigerians regarding that. So remember that we thought those children will be in school, right, as a result of that ban. Well, apparently, in some parts of the north, those children are back on the street. Or should I say, they maybe never even left in the first place. So you wonder what became of all that talk about banning that system and ensuring those children go to school. In fact, some would say it is even worse now.
One of the things that comes to my mind in all of these, guys, is do we even ever have a long-term plan for some of these issues? Chamberlain, you remember, or it was on Children's Day we were talking about, how much attention do we even give to children in the first place? It was you that reminded me that for a very long time we haven't domesticated the Child Rights Act.
17 years after.
In many states.
Now 18, by the way, 2021.
Now, if you one of the newspapers, just a few, in the past 1 week or so, the very next day after Children's Day, newspaper published that the National Human Rights Commission was urging 15 states that are yet to adopt the Child Rights Act to do so. And, you know, this is a constitutional right for children, for God's sake. And these are things that we mouth. There are quite a plethora of laws in this country that are supposed to protect the rights of the Nigerian child, including their rights to education. Do we even obey our own laws? I don't know where to begin. Okay.
Well, I don't know whether you want me to know where to begin. If you don't know, Ayo. But what I saw on TV yesterday, the follow-up story done by our correspondent in Bauchi, was very, very heartrending. When you look at the plight of children who we have just used our mouths to remove from a particular system and still haven't done what we ought to do by them. You know, we have to ask whether we're really serious about the future of this country. Time and again, we've heard analysts on our programs, on different radio shows, talk about how if we do not look after these children, you know, we're also neglecting the future. The fact that, you know, you have some children who are in school now, and then you have some children who are out of school. The children who are out of school will become a burden of some sort to the children who are currently in school. So it is only proper that we do what is right by all the children of this country. Abuse is another, you know, kettle of fish. But if we don't do what is right by them, and, you know, they are what we currently see, you know, sent out on errands, also asked to help make a living. There are huge question marks around there. You know, for some people, they don't see anything wrong with sending their children to hawk. They're part of the family. They should also bring in something. And, you know, some people will say that in societies, in traditional societies, that might be understandable. But the way the modern society is structured, you know, and the fact that that child could be subject to the kinds of abuse we've seen in recent times, that we need to, you know, review what used to be acceptable before now. And that is even, you know, some people say at least there's family there, you know, to even for the child to return to. What about those who abandon their children, you know, who's in the name of sending them to school, to faraway places, tender children? And while we're at this, we're still going to be talking about the children who have been kidnapped, who still haven't been returned to their families. And when you listen to the fact that these children are between the ages of 4, 6, you know, 10, 12, different ages, some of them really tender, and you have to, you know, imagine where those children will be right now. You know, there are huge questions as to what the Nigerian state has done by its own children, what we're currently doing in the federal government, as state government, whether or not children are a priority. I think that needs to be reviewed. If to us as parents and as individuals, our children are the reason why we wake up every morning and go to work, you know, what is Nigeria doing as a whole, as a people? Are we concerned, truly concerned, and putting our money where our mouth is with regards to the future of this country? Big questions, Ayo.
That's why I keep saying, look, just show me what laws or policies Nigeria has made for the children in the last couple of years, and you'll give you a picture of how seriously we take these things. But according to the stats out there, it doesn't appear as though we'll take it any seriously. Because, I mean, if Africa, UNICEF reports, they did reference the fact that Nigeria has the highest number of child marriages in Africa. In Africa, they say about 23 million women and girls were married in childhood in Africa. So, before you look any further.
And you haven't even talked about the number of out-of-school children.
So, if you add that to the equation, and then what happened to all the schools that were built? They were supposed to progress from there. I mean, how many times have we talked about the Safe School Initiative here? What has become of that? So, according to the statistics, no emotions in this one. So the stats tell us where we are, how seriously we're taking it, and from what we see, it's not encouraging. Have a look.
Hawking is a lucrative enterprise, but when it involves a child, its viability is put to question. This family rely on the earnings Khadija and Aliu bring home every day from hawking sachet water. Aliu, who is just 10, shares the bitter experience of hawking. Both siblings have never seen the four walls of a classroom. This is the same for over 13 million children who are out of school, including the Almajiri. Away from parental care, most Almajiri end up as child beggars or resort to menial jobs for survival. Roaming all over town without shoes and unhygienic conditions are a common sight, exposing them to harmful practices, exploitation and abuse. The ban on Almajiri system by northern governors in May last year appears to be mere rhetoric, as the system is still in practice in most states. The child rights law is also pending in 11 northern states. The rights of children to protection, education, health services, dignity, survival, among other things, are contained in the child rights law, which is yet to be adopted by many states. This delay has continued to deny many children full protection of the law. Speaker of the Bauchi State House of Assembly speaks about the contradictions in the law and what is being done.
We tasked the Minister of Women Affairs to go and do their homework, go and do some advocacy, go and do some enlightenment, because sincerely speaking, it's not what the people are expecting in the bill. So we asked them to go and do this so that they will bring it to us, and we also are going to do our part. We'll do public hearing, and then we'll see if there's anything that we can remove or add in the draft bill. We can do that so that we'll be able to domesticate it.
This learning center is one out of many established in Bauchi under the Better Education Service Delivery for All project, with the aim of reducing the number of out-of-school children and integrating Almajiri system into the formal learning.
Before Corona, we were able to integrate, return back about 94,000 people back to school. And after the Corona, we were able to return 64,000 people back to school.
Child experts are worried that insecurity poses a challenge to the gains being recorded.
You see, like in the northeast, this Boko Haram, so it has really hindered. Most schools were burned, and you see, most parents now find it as an excuse that take your wards to school, they have such problems, and the problem of kidnapping now is rampant. So it has really scared a lot of parents for even taking them to school.
It is clear that stronger actions must be taken in the best interest of the Nigerian child. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies we've got here today, and we're starting with Nigerian Tribune this morning. Outrage as herdsmen kill 11 in Igangan. We will defend our people. Amotekun to begin joint patrol of Yoruba land, Southwest governors. The Fulani burns the palace filling station. Several shops killed our people. The Barakwa North local government boss, let's ascribe to him. Makinde calls for calm, says police combing area in search of culprits. Alafin, Afenifere, Ray Adams, others react. So you have a host of riders associated with that big lead on the front page, and you can see the image right there as well. The raised palace, that's what how the picture captures that particular one here today. And then right beneath that one, this is not going away yet, and may be there for a while. PDP blasts APC over Twitter ban as Nigeria lost 4.4 billion naira in 2 days. MTN, Glo, Airtel, Etisalat taken to court. Sarah asks Commonwealth to sanction Nigeria. Malami's directive anachronistic in a democratic society. Ajulo. Twitter ban diversionary, ill-advised. Autumn. Did I hear you say something some time ago?
No comment.
Okay. Even though he attempted to comment, all of a sudden it's no comment. Okay, but that's what you see right here. So, wow. Look, I'm just seeing that there are several items here that you need to take a look at. And I don't know, it needs to again saying 6 years and 2 trillion naira after. Electricity distribution stalls at 3,000 megawatts. Well, we don't need to take you through all the figures here. How initially they promised they was going to get 10,000 megawatts in 4 years, 5,000 megawatts in 5 years. Look, there's several goalposts have been moved in the middle of the game. And now it says stalls at 3,000 megawatts. Meanwhile, the funds that were allocated to it is installing, by the way.
One of the questions you want to ask there is, who is really asking questions? The power sector is one of those sectors that we keep pumping money into without auditing.
Oof, it's huge.
So who is asking questions? Why do we spend money? It's like putting, I don't even want, again.
I guess we need to ask more questions then.
No comment. Yes.
You already did.
Well, the Vanguard leads with this sad one, Igangan massacre, callous, provocative. That's coming from Southwest governors. And I mean, seeing the writers under this story, you can begin to get a sense of how massive this is. Outrage as gunmen kill over 20 in fresh attack on Igangan. Over 50 attackers came on 20 motorcycles. Resident. So I think that brought up the talk about banning motorcycles or not. But that's just maybe one side of the many sides of this story. But let me continue with the riders. Monarch's whereabouts unknown We sent intelligence reports, says ex-council boss. Residents vow to resort to self-defense. Igogo killings devastating, dehumanizing Alaafin. War is imminent, says Gani Adams. Southwest governors should ask Buhari if we're not wanted in Niger. That's according to the YCE. And Makinde, that's the governor, saying we're in control of the situation. And finally, from the police, we can't confirm casualty figure. So all this you find on page 5 of the Vanguard this morning. But believe me, that story is a huge one, and it perhaps extends beyond page 5, 6, 7 if you want to just try to capture all that is being said regarding that.
I'm concerned about the fact that if the intelligence report was out. I remember it was just a few days ago, maybe about 2 or 3 days back, that the Oyo State Security Network top gun, retired General Togun, was saying that there is an attack imminent in the southwest, and then it happened in Oyo State. So what did we do about that? Before, at least if we knew it was going to happen, was there any engagement? Was there, I don't know.
Big question. And over in the southeast, you see police battle unknown gunmen, in parentheses, in Owerri, 5 killed. It's on page 36. The front page of Vanguard is actually full this morning, really.
So is the back too, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You have sports news, raw to make changes in Eagles lineup.
He better.
What's the talk about Nigeria maybe not having the quality to go far in a certain competition? But you know, we'll let you do the reading. And of course, don't forget Mr. and Mrs.
You've forgotten it already.
I didn't forget it. That's why I mentioned it. Something to lighten your mood this morning. That's a Vanguard for you.
I will soon start protesting. Daily Trust newspaper leads with terrorism financing. 180 BDC operators pay 900 million naira penalties to CBN. Find that story on page 5. 3 months after arrests, traders incommunicado. FG prepares charges as suspects shop for lawyers. Lawyers differ on prolonged incarceration. Find all of that story on the inside pages this morning. And that sad story at Igogo is also right there on the front page. 15 killed at Igogo 4 months after sack of Fulani settlement. IPOP kingpin, 4 others killed in fresh attack on Imo Police headquarters. That story is on page 3 of the paper this morning, and so many other stories. Oh, right beside the picture there, one of the stories you find, Nigeria afflicted with clueless, visionless leaders. Ascribed to Jega, that would be the former INEC chairman. Find that story on page 6 of the paper this morning. Mokwe.
That's a grave affliction, don't you think? Well, look at what's on the front page of New Telegraph now. They have this one, Twitter ban. Nigeria's businesses lose 4.3 billion naira in 2 days. Yeah, that's what they have on the front page. Economy can't operate in isolation. OPS warns federal government. Service sector, e-commerce to see massive decline. Bad omen for ease of doing business. That quote is in parentheses there. Official rascality taken too far. That's from the CTA. It's APC's plot to suppress Nigerians from the People's Democratic Party. They're not silent. Pages 3, well, all of the stories are on page 3 for you. Yeah, that story came out of the blues, it would seem, on Friday. People did not think that was going to be probable, that as a result of the spat between the presidency and, you know, Twitter, that we're going to see just what we saw on Friday. But hey, we saw it. And this is some of the aftermath, or this is some of what, you know, people are saying have happened. We've lost 4.3 billion naira in 2 days. Well, you might want to read the details there. You have a number of other stories there. ONSA orders dismantling of illegal security outfits nationwide. That's from the Office of the National Security Advisor. Dismantling of illegal security outfits nationwide. You might want to read details on page 8 of the paper. $12 billion Trans-Sahara gas pipeline haulage faces setback. What sort of setback? Page 8 will give you details. You have a number of stories just beneath the nameplate. And you also find this one: disbelief, shock as TB Joshua dies at 57. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Well, they're counting the cost still. Take a look at The Guardian, for instance. $12 billion e-commerce suffers as Twitter ban costs 7.5 billion naira in 3 days. So you can imagine if it keeps going further, then it keeps costing us a lot more. Can the economy afford this? FG in talks with China considers internet firewall to block VPN access. A4AI Nigeria says situation creates $1.2 billion loss for MSMEs, raises questions of our readiness for investors, says Alton. So that's licensed telecom operators. So there you go. I don't know if somebody's computing these figures up there. If you can crunch those numbers to see the reality.
Before the ban or after?
Both. So it's about counting the cost, isn't it, as they say. Well, who knows? But of course, you usually see that unfortunate story at the bottom strip. TB Joshua asks Nigerians to pray for 2023. Shocked worshipper relieves last moments before collapse. Buhari, governors, church leaders mourn. Losing a loved one is never easy. Wife mourns. So all of that you see here. And then not forgetting, deplorable facilities raise safety concerns at international airports. You might as well just check out several other stories. That's The Guardian today.
Well, over to Nigerian News Direct's front page. Nigeria to lose 65.3 billion naira on Twitter ban in 30 days. You know, the figures, I don't know if it's the exchange rates, that different exchange rates that, you know, people are using to compute the figures. But you see this one on page 2. FG should worry about collateral damage to businesses, LCC. National interest outweighs economic implications. Alton president, or Alcon this time around. But, you know, there are other costs, like access to information, for example. And, you know, talk about rights being violated. Can you put a cost to that? So some of these costs are actually, you can never really put a figure to it. So 65.3 billion naira or even more. There's a cost to security as well. So this talk needs to really happen, and we need to really get a handle on this particular one. Some other stories on the front page of Nigerian News Direct, but let's leave it there.
The Abuja Inquirer, very quickly. Area Council Chairman. 90 candidates battle for 6 slots. That's what you find on the front page there. 15 political parties in the race. It's interesting what's happening over there. Right above the nameplate, FG's Twitter ban wrong and overreaction, says NPAN. And a number of other stories you'll find on the front page of the paper this morning.
Yeah, there you go. So that wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, yes, we're talking about the unfortunate attacks, and we've got Mr. Fatai Owosheni joining us this morning. He's a special advisor on security matters to Oyo State Governor. He's a former commissioner of police. He's been in Lagos, in Benue State, amongst others. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. And first of all, commiserations on this unfortunate incident. But there are several reports as to the casualty figures and accounts, so people still worried. So perhaps if you don't mind starting from that perspective, has that been, can we place a finger on it now in terms of the casualty figures so people know how to proceed?
Good morning, Chamberlain, and thank you for the condolence message. I happened to I've traveled with the Commissioner of Police to Igangan yesterday, and from the camp, and of course the corpses that we saw, 11 persons of the Gaga community. The 11 casualties were recorded, while 5 of the bandits were also eliminated.
But I know that, do we have an idea? Did you see this coming in the first place? Because several people have said, well, there might have been a hint or two from security agents, even though they had been speaking with everybody in the community, hoping that this kind of thing doesn't happen. But is there any, can you tell us how things broke down, if at all it did?
Yeah, you see, from all indications, from what we saw at Grant, as to whether did we see it coming, somehow we've been having intelligence that there is a likelihood of the fellow, the Seriki Sali, that was pursued out of that community to his own place in Kwara State. That there is a likelihood of him, you know, seeking help from people that are Fulani ethnic origin to come and do a reprisal. And there have been reports of some of his children also saying that they want to come back. So he's been talking with two sides of his mouth. At a point in time, he even wrote an appeal pleading that the state should allow him to come back. This information, as we received them, we shared with the security agencies and the locals, that is the traditional institutions and the local government officials. And that informed the, you know, the concepts that the state had been putting up to get more of the non-state actors to be integral part of our concept. And we've been working on that seriously. We've been asking everybody to be on the lookout. But as with every asymmetric warfare, a jungle war, people always take advantage. So what happened yesterday, early in the morning, that was between around 11, 10 p.m. up till about 3, 4 a.m. Was that these fellows took advantage of the darkness and enter the Gaga community through a place identified as Asunara. So in such situation, you can't plan enough in asymmetric warfare. But apart from you know, condoling with the families of those people that lost their lives, I also want to sincerely appreciate the people in Igaga, that is the community, the non-state actors, His Excellency Governor Sheyi Makinde, appreciate them a lot because for them to have quickly mobilized, because they were caught unaware, a social party was ongoing. They were just rounding up at the party when these guys, you know, struck. So for them to have taken the bull by the horn and fought back, and were able to also eliminate part of these fellows, that was a very good. It was a good attempt. And while one of the reasons that we're concluding that it was the reprisal is that out of the 5 of the bandits that were killed, 2 of them were positively identified to be children of that fellow, the Sally, that has been, you know, removed from that place. While one of them is a son of Wakili, who is presently in prison on charges of kidnapping and murder. So if you just, yes, it's not conclusive, but having those elements there that have been identified with the fellows that have been accused of so many things speak to the fact that it's a kind of reprisal, and it was also somehow targeted. That's what I can read from what we saw at Igaga yesterday.
One of the things that comes to my mind, Mr. Oshini, is that, I mean, you said that the information was well ahead of time, which was shared with security agencies. I'm wondering if there is any way one could have also shared the same information one way or another with the members of the community as well, because I'm wondering, was there anything we could have done to, knowing that these things could happen, maybe, increase or beef up security in the area, and as well, perhaps, maybe not to cause any kind of apprehension on the part of the people, but at least to prepare in the event that such things would happen so that we don't lose so many lives and property. Could that have been done?
First, let me, maybe you did hear me when I was talking, responding to Chamberlain's question, that when we started getting such information, even from the people in Kwara, where Saliu originated from, they were also looking for a way to evict him from that place. So when we started getting the information, we had interactions with the people within that axis, Okeogun, Ibarapa axis, and the whole of Oyo State, but especially focused on the people within that area. The local government officials and the same information was disseminated to the traditional rulers that we have to be on the lookout, that when people see something, they should say something. But beside all that, when you talk of asymmetric warfare, what they call jungle warfare, you cannot prepare enough. And, they will always take opportunity of some gaps, like as it happened. It was some minutes before midnight. So even if you have all the structure, you will still have that element of surprise. And of course, with the turn in a kind of joyous mood, like I said before, the party was ongoing through where they came in from, and somehow targeted as well. But I will still give it to very good people in Igaga, the non-state actors, the elders, and the youths there, for them to have come out boldly and challenge that, somehow repel, pursue them, and were able to eliminate 5 of them. So that is to say that some kind of preparation was on ground, and what we just need to do in Oyo State, we've been emphasizing what we call integrated security architecture, integrated security concept. That is making the non-state actors integral part of our architecture, because there is a huge gap in terms of personnel strength of the conventional security people. And the only way we can do that, we can bridge the gap, is to get the non-state actors involved. And we will only accelerate, putting this structure on a sound footing. The concept, an operational concept, have been designed, which will make the non-state actors who will operate under the voluntary policing sector, who will to have a seamless synergy, a good working relationship with the conventional security.
Well, you'd also recall, the fact that lives were lost is definitely something that concerns the Oyo State government, as you have said, and everyone is really concerned. So even though we can't, prepare enough, loss of life is never something anything wants to record. I'm sure you would agree with that. But the question is against the backdrop of not just this event, but the fact that the chairman of Oyo State Security Network also made that comment within the past a week or so, that there is a likelihood of attacks, and that most of the people, well, the likelihood is that there are going to be people who are not from Nigeria in particular, and that is not the first time we're hearing that kind of thing. Is there any way that we can forestall a repeat?
You see, when you talk of security, you can't have total 100% mark when it comes to security. And you mentioned the chairman of Amotekun on Oyo State had come up with that. I must tell you that there are ways that intelligence reports are disseminated, which we've been doing in Oyo State, because we have the service commanders that will share this information. Even before then, I have mentioned that when we got the information, we've gotten the service commanders involved, we've gotten the local community involved, we've put on ground a kind of structure, the background to, formally integrating the non-state actors into our security architecture. We've, because all these things involve a lot of plans, and it's not everything you do about security that you want to roll out. It's also not every intelligence report that you get you want to broadcast in a manner that will make people to be panicky. I can assure you that this, yes, from all indications, appear targeted, but you learn lessons from different things that happened. I will still repeat it. The fact that the Gonga community was able to come out and repel and succeeded in eliminating 5 of them, that was an indication that some groundwork must have been made. So it's just a matter of strengthening that structure to make sure that we are not caught unaware. The focus here in Oyo State, which His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde is pushing, is let us put all structures in place that will make us to be proactive as much as possible. But no country in the world, nowhere in Nigeria, can you say you are winning asymmetric warfare 100%. There may be little gaps in there, but as it happens, you do a lesson learned. You know what are the things you've done that are best practices, and you see how you can improve on the gaps that you have. But I can assure you that we'll continue to improve on that structure, accelerate integrating strongly our non-state actors into the architecture that will work.
At least 3 times now you have commended the people of Igongo for rising up to the occasion, as it were. And you've talked about collaboration. You just talked about that now. You say that this attack took place from about 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. the next day. That's about 4 hours. The question for me first is, where was the police, or according to you, conventional security agencies? Where were they during this 4-hour period?
Look, everybody, yes, I was a policeman, but everybody thought, where were the police? If you listen very well, I've mentioned that there is a huge gap. How many policemen do you have in a place? That has this, because of the incident we've been having. We've been having reinforcement of the PMF. We've been having reinforcement of Amotekun and the Operation Boss, the state security outfit. So when you are faced with such situation, and of course in the night, limited operations are carried out. So the little support that it can give to the people there before reinforcement came, helped and assisted in getting the enemy side, to get some of the enemy side eliminated. You cannot. If anybody says you can have 100 over 100 in security, please forget it. That is utopia.
My question is quite specific. Between that 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. window, did reinforcement from the police come?
Yes. People were moved from Aguare. That is the new mobile squadron. From Aguare to that axis would take like about 2 hours. They had some on ground before. What we have to recognize is that there is huge deficit when you talk of strength of the police. Even when you talk of the weapon with which they will operate, and night operations, as far as the rule of engagement is concerned, is somehow always limited. That is the professional view.
Where investigations and talks around this attack could happen without referring to what happened in January, the episode with the Seriki Fulani, which you also referenced and all that. And you say that people identified some of the attackers as sons of either the Seriki or Wakili. The question is, what happened then? How was it resolved, or was it ever resolved, really? Because if this is a reprisal, then it clearly points to the fact that the episode we saw there was not quite resolved.
I won't understand fully what you mean by resolved. When I was talking, I mentioned that Wakili is still awaiting trial, is in prison custody with two of the other suspects on charges of murder and kidnapping. The other fellow who fled from that place has been, moving from one location to the other, and the investigation is still ongoing on that. And you can be sure that whichever way, people will be brought to justice. So I know quite well that the police, especially, that is charged with that responsibility, they are doing their work, and hopefully at the right time, the long hand of justice will catch up with that fellow. But the other fellow is on remand in the correctional service.
Of responses to this attack, we've also had some from the opposition party in Oyo State. And let me just take something from what they said. In fact, for them, they're solely blaming the governor for this lapse, which they realize. And they ask that for how long should Governor Seyi Makinde continue passing the buck, rather. And the question they ask is, what is the essence of the monthly security vote which the governor collects if it could not be channeled towards securing the lives and property of the residents and indigene of Oyo State? Now, this is the view of the opposition party in the state. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't want to join in any political discussion. It is unfortunate, and that is the bane in this country. I want to know what the political class who, politicize, ethnicize everything security. It's a sad thing for us in the country to put issues around, political thing. Before this incident happened, Ignorant had been, a little bit calm for some months before we had this. And, I'll leave politics to politicians to talk. If that is what their reaction is going to be, let's wait and see if this country is going to consume all of us. Anything security should not be, put in ethnic coloration, political coloration, or religious coloration. Security is for all, and whatever. But I don't want to be involved in all those political. I don't want to use certain languages. All what I know is that your state, every effort has been made to ensure that people are, well secured, that we improve on everything we are doing, and everything also still boils down to how do you really, do a quick fix of the huge gap in strength, huge gap in infrastructure. I'm talking professionally now. How many policemen do you have in all the places? Even where you have the policemen, including the military, where are the weapons for them to work? And that is why we're having all this collapse. So is that supposed to be politicized? So I hope that the political elite will realize that, and they will not, put things in political perspective.
You know, I know the governors that in the Southwest have spoken, saying that this is callous, this is premeditated, and that they will do what they can within the law to protect their citizens. But does this, for you, do you think it further damages the confidence that people have in the police to do their job when they can or when they have to?
Kimberly, you know my position when it comes to discussing police. I'm passionate about the police. That's an institution where I sat for 35 years. We must sit down in Nigeria and, decide whether we are ready to have a police. We are not ready to have a police in Nigeria. Take that place as an example. The divisional police headquarters is located at Ayike. Ayike to Ibadan is like about 15-20 minutes drive with a vast land. And you want a DPO to police that place with 30,000 naira in 3 months. Who has bought weapons for the police over the years? Who has recruited people into the police for so many years? So the police is a victim of bad governance in this country. The police is a victim of the political elite. People will come and talk of answers and all those things. You create an institution and you continue to decimate that institution. This is not the police that some of us joined. So the guys are just struggling. The police are miracle workers. So everything that is said about the police is about all of us. A nation will have a police that it deserves. So we are not ready to have a police in Nigeria. You would say that police is bad. You continue to decimate, to continue to create all sort of proliferate security agencies. And you will do a joint task force. You will fund a joint task force more than a whole institution. You will create fractions out of the police. You will fund them more than the whole institution. Please, a person like me, when I talk to the police, it would invoke a kind of passion. The country is not ready to have a police. The country don't want the police to perform. Nigeria is the most difficult country to police. So that is it.
Well, I clearly understand, your passion, disappointment, and the way things are going. I mean, Nigerians equally feel, if not more, frustrated because they expect the authorities to know what to do and do the right things when it comes to policing. But it appears as though some people may be benefiting from the current structure, hence reasons why they don't see why they should do something about it. But just give us a moment. There's some other areas that we just need to clarify because we need to talk about solutions in terms of what to do, preventing this from happening again. But that will be when we return in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, Mr. Osheni, still in the theme of speaking about solutions to some of this, but I'd like to find out, does it make it more difficult for you advising the governor in terms of what to do, perhaps if the people feel disenchanted about the police, for instance?
Let me tell you, it's not about anything. Your state. And of course, while I was in the service, most of the states that I work, the governors are doing a whole lot. And here in Oyo State, fantastic structure has been put on. Apart from vehicles being provided, the vehicles are being fueled. The police and other security outfits in Oyo State are also being given allowance by the governor. When this madness of school kidnapping started, Oyo State is one of the states, yes, we may not make noise about it, where we've connected some of our schools, using vulnerability index to select schools. But we had our schools connected to the state security control room. So in Oyo State, from Ibadan, we can see some of the things that are happening in schools. And we have an alarm system that when things happen, they have any breach. Once they press the alarm, it will get to the police control room the State Security Control Room, the Amotekun Operation Room, the Operation Boss Operation Room, the nearest DPO, and the school head. So it's a huge, a lot of money that is spent on that. From Ibadan here, we can view some part of Ogbomoso, we can view some part of Oyo Town. Even the mobile squadron that was established in Vanguard, there's a whole lot of money that was used in setting it up. We have to commend the governor, His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde. A whole lot of support has been given to the police, but the governor cannot recruit people into the police. Oyo State, as huge as it is, the vastness of the land with an international border, it has probably not up to 3,000 policemen. What are we talking about? And do you want to hold the governor responsible for that? So it's something that, you know, that is why sometimes, although some of us are saying, no, it's not the state police that is the situation, but you can't but support some of the governors that are agitating for state police. So, and out of about 3,000 policemen that we police Oyo State, majority have been deployed for one bag carrying jobs or the other, which the governor don't have control over. So it's the political leadership that should, you know, cover their face in shame. The police is derided. The police is used as caricature. But police, an average policeman, you know, bear the brunt of bad governance in this country. The average policeman bear the brunt of the incompetence of everyone. The police is made to suffer for everything just because they don't have a voice. That is the only institution that don't have a voice in this country. If they have sit down in negotiation of salaries before, that will say, oh, if the police who probably does the biggest job in this country is paid more than the military has a weapon that they can say, okay, maybe, yes, although coup is no more fashionable. The other arms of the public service, be it doctors, whatever, they can go on strike. It's only in the police that I cannot say Fatai and Chamberlain were complaining about something. That is mutiny. If you oppress a body that without which nothing can happen, what are you going to have? Because you know, it's so sad and unfortunate that at every point in time, everybody will be talking of police. People are talking of NSAS. We are fooling ourselves. It's not about NSAS. It's ends to bad governance. The police reflect the political leadership. The police reflect what the country is all about. So if you deride the police, you are deriding yourself, for God's sake. So I have talked about it, and it evokes passion in me. You cannot just oppress people. I mentioned something. Even as Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, I mentioned it that an average DPO is given 30,000 naira quarterly to police his area. Where Channels is located is policed by Magodo Police Station. Imagine from Magodo to your office, and you are giving that person 30,000 naira quarterly. The money for the first quarter may not be paid until the third quarter. And you continue to decimate that institution and fund, you know, the infinitesimal units you are creating out of that institution, more than the whole institution. Where were people in those days, the glorious days of the police? Even as of the early 80s, when we joined the police, we met a good police. You have rank and files now that are supposed to be given 2 pairs of uniform in a year. Those fellows have to go and buy from their salary. The average policeman, constable, the salary you give him is not even enough for him to commute from his house to the police station where he works. We see police and our political leaders, even at the National Assembly, they will deride the police that they are stinking. Why would they not stink, for God's sake? You are a policeman is coming from Ota to come and work in Ikeja every day. So because the salary is not enough for him to commute, when he leaves his family in Ota on Sunday, He will tell Madam, oh, I'll come back on Saturday. The police station where he works, it's not as if there is accommodation there. So every morning he wakes up, he looks for sachet water or one dirty water to clean his face, wear the same uniform. So you have already, made the guy not to have any sense of dignity. It's not his making, and you are holding him responsible for everything. You cannot bring policemen from some of the civilized countries here. What will kill them is depression. I've cited an example in Benue State. Despite all the supports that the governors are giving us, you go to some places, you will put them where you will not even put your dog. You will put them where there is no governance at all. Yes, they've been talking of, we shouldn't be talking of ungoverned spaces. It's only the police you live at the middle of nowhere. Who does that? All the other institutions that they create, is there any of those institutions that do that? Who is on the road in the night? For God's sake, we should pity the police. They are miracle workers.
Yeah, but at that,
passing all these blames on the police.
Yeah, I get your point. Additionally, there will be many who will be asking questions as to what happens to DSS intelligence. Are they up to it? Did they share intelligence? What's happening to the military parts as well? Did they have any hints that this was going to happen? All of that. But I know that this next one, may be up to the governor. But already, when this happened, the immediate thoughts that some people have is, well, since they came with about, 20, 50 bikes, who knows? The state may have to do something about commercial motorcycles. Is that going to be? Do we expect any decision on that?
No one has been able to say this is the exact number of people that entered the Ghana. No one.
I get that point, but I'm asking, since they came with motorcycles, what happens? Do the people expect the government to make a decision on that?
For the incident that happened, no one in Ghana told us that they came in bikes. Oh. They only said that they used the bush paths to enter. Then when you talk of bikes, a whole lot of people have been talking of why has the state not ban Okada operation or whatever. And good enough, our governor will say, oh, everything we do in Oyo State, we want it to be logical. We want to think through it. We want it to be scientific. If there is no demand, there will not be supply. You understand. If you don't organize your transportation system very well to get alternative for people, you cannot just wake up. And you have to remember that some of the people that ride these motorcycles, some of them are graduates. Because of limited opportunity, they take that as a business. Have you provided alternative jobs for them? So don't let us, some of the things that we theorize about in this country, may God help us. We are, it's like we are moving towards, I don't know what to call it. Everybody will say, oh, ban bikes. But the state is saying, look, you can organize them. There are some countries, go to Beijing, they have an Okada link that they perform. Here, the state is embarking on capturing them biometrically so that you can link an average Okada man to a family. You also educate them on how not to be bad. While I was in Lagos, in Apapa, I was using some of the back riders to check bank robberies because the armed robbers don't know that I have some of those Okada riders who are stationed around by the banks. When people come out of the bank, the ones that you follow to go and snatch money from them. It's not just about saying, oh, ban this, ban that, when you have not provided alternatives. Alternatives in terms of job, alternatives in terms of transportation. So what are we talking about? Everything that is done in Oyo State is done based on logic, science, and of course, looking through it to see what benefits. Do you initiate a policy to cause multiple, some other multiple incidents? So you don't want to do that. And it's not just about opposition says, oh, why are they not banned bike or whatever?
Well,
so I was patronizing them.
Yeah, I actually did say if the people should expect a decision on motorcycles, not necessarily banning it, because there are several other things that can be done about it. For instance, I mean, we know that they're not, I mean, no, the law clearly says they can't apply. Yeah.
Let me tell you this. Even in Lagos, when we said, oh, don't fly certain routes, some people will be going to the airport
or go against traffic,
and they'll be held in traffic. And the next thing they are looking for is a bike rider. So when you ban them, people will still operate underneath. Some people said, okay, restrict the time of operation. His Excellency just about a week ago in the media chat said, people said, oh, stop Okada operation between maybe from 8 p.m. or whatever. And he took himself to certain locations in Ibadan and now counted the number of Okada operating within that hours. You find out that at that hour is even a limited number of them that operate. Where you have a good structure put in place, enforcement and everything, you say you ban them now, you are creating opportunity for corruption for some people. Because if you're banning, you must also have a record. How many do you prosecute? And we are also talking of a country where things don't work together. The criminal justice administration, how many of you are going to take to court when even the courts are not sitting? How many people can the correctional facilities take if they cannot pay their fine? So when we talk of all this, that is why His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde will always say, anything you want to do, everything you want to do, make it logical. Where they have banned them, are they really, is the ban, has it been effective 100%? So those are the questions that we should be asking ourselves. But I can tell you, the state is working assiduously, making effort to ensure that we capture the back riders, biometrically, that we educate them, organize the way they operate. One of the things that was done was you learn lessons from other countries. His Excellency brought a model policy from Rwanda, which we've seen. Oh, how can we work through it? But basically, once you ban them, you are also going to create a crime problem for the state. Because graduates that don't have work, that has gone to ride Okada, what else do you want him to do? People that are going to work, find out, some of your staff, is Okada that they ride to the office now. So what are we talking about? So if there is no demand, there will not be supply. So let us not fool ourselves at all.
Most certainly issues are there. Well, whatever the decision is, I guess one would just wait. You have already hinted at one. But on that same issue, you would remember that General Togun retired had also said that some of the bike riders usually gather information to use to foment trouble. He said they use the bikes to study the topography, get information, and all of that in order to foment some of these troubles. I want to believe that that is also part of the consideration. So while waiting for government to do the needful that you have hinted at, what do we do in the interim to ensure that these things do not get out of hand with some of the Okada riders who sometimes use it to foment trouble?
What we need to do, apart from getting alternatives, is to have, institutions that are sound, enforcement institutions, starting from the police, the Federal Road Safety, and some of the state-created traffic management agencies. When you have strong institutions, and of course, you go to the judiciary as well. When you have strong institutions, you'll be able to enforce. I can take a bet on it. Maybe just one or two other countries will probably be at par with Nigeria when it comes to enforcement. Even the elite, some of us that speak a whole lot of grammar, we are the people. Look at the most of the GRA. They have cooks, they have maids, they have gardeners that are coming to work. It's the big men that are saying ban Okadas, that their cooks are coming to work and they will ride Okada to work. So they are the same people that will say ban them. They are the same people that will come and say, oh, how will my cook come to work and all those things. The ones you think through it, like the governor of Oyo State is doing now, I've mentioned that before, that we are working strongly to make sure that we organize that system in a manner that will not, that they will not use them for purposes that are criminal in nature.
Well, Mr. Oshane, pardon me, let's try to wind down on this. So we have a town that has just been attacked. People were killed. I believe a lot of people are still mourning strongly right now. It's still fresh in their memories. And a lot of thoughts, a lot of conversations, some of them you may have heard, regarding what to do next, how to ensure this doesn't happen again. Some are talking about self-help. I know the governor has spoken about that and tried to tell people to keep it calm. But you know these things are out there because people think, why would this happen? We don't deserve to go through this, especially also because they sense that it might happen again. So what would be closure for these people, and how soon will they be able to get closure?
We don't deserve to even lose one life to insecurity in Oyo State or in any part of the country. It is also utopian to say that you have a crime-free society. With all sense of modesty, Oyo State still remains one of the states that is relatively peaceful when you compare the state with some other countries, even with states in the southwest. So, like I mentioned before, when things happen like this, you sit down, re-strategize. And of course, the focus of the state with the security task force and the war room that was created by the Executive Council, which His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde chaired, is to ensure that we do a robust work on proactive measures. We don't want to be reactive. We are doing it. What has happened in Uganda would also, spur us to more action to accelerate what we are doing. As I talked to you, the structure has been put in place on how to get the non-state actors fully integrated in our security architecture. Oyo State is probably one of the first states that says our architecture is now changed to integrated security concept, where the non-state actors are made to work closely in support of the conventional security without any rancor, because that has always been the problem. To also make the non-state actors to work together, because the non-state actors are not working together. To get our traditional rulers involved. For a very long time, traditional rulers in Oyo State have not met together. But we had it just recently, and it is for the purpose of security. And because our traditional fathers also recognize that security is very important, they dropped all whatever misgivings they've been having. For almost 5, 6, 8 years, no governor had called traditional rulers together in Oyo State. And His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde has done that for the purpose of security. We've been bringing our non-state actors together to say, oh, you have different factions of OPC. You have a Soludero, you have a Bekoya. All of you will work together for a common purpose. And for the conventional security to also recognize the fact that with police, with Operation Boss, with Amotekun, that there is no rivalry. And we are getting the agencies to work together more than they've been working together. And I believe that, yes, I don't want to sound somehow. I think what has happened in Ghana will make us to put more effort and quickly, put this structure and operationalize this structure. Once you operationalize the structure, the local community, they know the nooks and crannies of their communities. They know how to navigate the place. They are essential. And we continue to count on the support of our people that all of us will join together and overcome this. But Oyo State remains one of the states in this country that you can say, when you're talking of security, we rank as one of the states that take security as very important.
We're hoping that the governors will be able to compare notes so that other states perhaps may need to borrow a leaf from each other and shore up the security architecture in different states. But we do thank you for coming on today, Mr.
Thank you
Fatai
so
Oshuni,
much.
a special advisor on security matters to Oyo State Governor. Well, back in a moment. It's Twitter next.
Twitter may have its own rules. It's not a universal rule. If Mr. President, anywhere in the world, feels very bad and concerned of a situation, he is free to express such views. Now, we should stop comparing apples with oranges. If an organization is proscribed, it is different from any other organization which is not proscribed. Two, any organization that gives directives to its members to attack police stations, to kill policemen, to attack correctional centers, to kill warders. I'm not saying that Mr. President does not have the right to express his dismay and anger about that. We are the one guilty of double standards. I don't see anywhere in the world where an organization, a person will stay in somewhere outside Nigeria and will direct its members to attack the symbols of authority, the police, the military.
Welcome back. Well, yes, as you've seen there, Mr. Ahmed Raji joins us next. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, there's been different legal positions as to that announcement by government on whether it is right or wrong. What do you think, legally speaking? Can you hear me, Mr. Raji?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so what do you think about that announcement by the federal government suspending Twitter in Nigeria?
Well, the suspension of Twitter is very unfortunate. And you can see from the voices coming from outside Nigeria, Britain, Sweden, they've all condemned it. And my belief is that there is a better approach to it than just banning Twitter as an institution. Because in the modern world, digital giants like Twitter, Google, Amazon, they are not just business outfits. They represent a position. And I think the home country or countries of such giants will not sit by and watch a violation of the business right of these entities. So I would rather that the government should approach it differently and not just an outright ban of Twitter, because Twitter is now a veritable means of communication, of exercising the right of citizens. But this should not detract from the substance of Mr. President's admonition, as explained by the Minister of Information, to the effect that Nigerians, as a country, the leaders cannot sit by and watch while individuals are engaging in activities that would dismember the entire country. But is banning Twitter the appropriate solution? I doubt it. That's my reaction.
All right, we'll go to break now, but we'll come back and get more perspective from you in just a moment. Stay with us. We certainly haven't heard the last of this matter, especially when you hear by young men and women. It appears as though every young man and woman that does that, but clearly that is not the case. But Mr. Raji, over the weekend as well, there was this statement from the Office of the Attorney General saying that they had to prosecute anyone who's found violating that directive. So how did that play out in law? Because I heard lawyers say, look, which part of our laws are they going to rely on to prosecute anyone who, quote unquote, violates that suspension? And then some say, well, when they arrest and they're about to prosecute, they'll tell us what part of the law they rely on. So what is the legal position on this matter?
If you ban the producer of sugar, does that mean you have banned taking of sugar? I think there are maybe as many opinions as there are people on this point. But the most important thing here is for something that has to do with digital industry, there must have to be what they call forensic digital analysis or investigation before you can now come out to say whether or not the ban has been violated. I don't know how much of digital analysis, forensic digital analysis has been conducted by the Office of the Attorney General. And what about the challenges of tracking? I believe the government should not make too many enemies on account of whatever Twitter has done. We have innocent users of who are just tweeting and then trying to conduct business, exchange messages and what have you. How do you now make them liable? How? But it's unfolding until there is what they call a digital forensic analysis, and the result of which will now reveal whether there is a violation of the ban. I do not think we have had the last story on whatever the Office of the AG has issued out. That is my reaction to it in the interim.
Yeah, one wonders, what actually constitutes a violation of that suspension, for instance? If government folks tweet or don't deactivate their account, can both of them be classified as violation if they didn't deactivate their account, or if they go elsewhere and use their accounts, maybe not within the territory of Nigeria?
That is why I'm saying it has to be for digital forensic analysis. What some people are trying to do is to use what they call virtual network. That is to override whatever and still do the same thing, which ordinarily they shouldn't do. But the point here is, who has been banned? Is it the Twitter or the users? What they are saying here is those who use it will now have to be penalized. Is that not going too far?
You know,
and
another
before you arrive at an analysis that you have used it, how much of digital forensic analysis have you conducted, and when was it conducted, and by whom?
Okay, I think you raised quite an important point. Let me also ask you, follow up from that analogy of sugar producer and people using sugar that you cited earlier on. So for the government, it says that the suspension was instituted because of the persistent use of the platform for activities that are capable of undermining Nigeria's corporate existence. So if I could just use that sugar analogy, federal government was essentially saying that some people have been using sugar to maybe hurt Nigeria. Therefore, they have suspended the producer of sugar from providing sugar, or at least giving sugar to people who may want to use sugar for their tea, for their food, and for baking and other reasons. And there are questions as to the constitutionality of the decision of the government. In fact, some even say, regarding that probe or the prosecution rather, how constitutional is it? But let's begin from that suspension, because the talk about the rights to expression and all that. How constitutional really is the decision of the government to suspend Twitter?
Well, there is no absolute right under the Constitution. And the right to associate and the right to free speech is where they are going to hinge this tweeting business. But it is not absolute. In some cases, the law or the right may be curtailed. But in this case, has government made out a case for the abridgment or curtailment of the right of Twitter? What is the reason given? The first reason they gave was deletion or pulling down of the tweet of Mr. President. And then, as an improvement, the government has come out to say, oh, they have realized that, and they made reference to what happened in New Zealand as a result of a tweet which led to the death of some people, and that Twitter as a body has been a host to what they call incompatible messages and very offensive ideas that are causing problem and may divide a nation. Therefore, a platform like this should not be allowed to exist or is banned. Question: would this be reasonably justifiable against the standards set by the Constitution? On this, I'm not going to provide any opinion because the matter may end up in court. And I think the opinion of the court will now guide us as to whether pulling down the tweet of Mr. President is enough, or the allegation that, oh, a few tweets or some tweets are quite offensive will be enough to outrightly ban. I believe a careful examination will lead us to a kind of a conclusion, which I don't want to embark upon through this video, because obviously Serap has threatened that they are going to go to court. Some other bodies have also threatened that they are going to go to court. I believe at the end of the day, the best way out is dialogue, because Twitter is a big American interest, just like Google and Amazon. And in matters of this nature, America will not stand by and watch the interests of Twitter being threatened. Recently, because of tax evasion or avoidance by these big telecom giants or digital giants, some nations in the world resorted, including Britain and France and I think Italy or so, they resorted to what they call digital services tax. And at the end of the day, they had to meet, and they are now reversing the taxes to have a resolution of the matter. I believe the federal government should approach this matter through diplomatic channels and resolve the matter with Twitter, rather than picking up a battle that we may not be able to fight, because behind Twitter is the looming American interest as a nation. Thank you.
You know, seeing the wordings of the initial statement and then the eventual one explaining the decision, you know, first it was said that Twitter has been indefinitely suspended, and later on talked about temporary suspension. One wonders if, I mean, some of these conversations you talked about have begun already. But I'd like to also ask you regarding the decision or the order which was given to telcos, because this was largely executed by telcos and ISPs across the country. what is the procedure? Because, I mean, there are some decisions you make, you have to approach the courts to get some sort of order, which that can then be relied upon. And there are questions as to whether or not telcos or ISPs should have maybe asked for a court order and said, well, what is backing this up? So that at least they can have something to stand on, as it were. Should that be also part of this conversation?
Well, it should be. I think the telcos will have to obey the regulator. If they are not comfortable with the directive of the regulator, they are the ones to go to court. But they cannot ask the regulator, give us an order. Because the regulator, prima facie, has the authority to issue orders to them. But whether that order is valid or illegal is a question to be determined by the court. So the telcos, they are enjoined. There are two options. Either they assume that these orders are irregular and therefore they will not want to comply, or they approach the court. But the option I would advise them is to approach the court and challenge the validity of the order against whatever the extant rules are.
Do you see that happening, knowing that, you know, government regulates their business? Do you see the telcos going to courts to challenge that kind of order?
I don't see the big telcos, but maybe some of the minor ones with a little interest in the system may do so, but the giants, like the giants, may not want to dare do that. I agree with you. For practical purposes, they will not do that. But maybe SERAP has threatened now to go to court. Whether it has locus or not is a different thing entirely. But above all, I believe this is a matter that calls for dialogue and constructive engagement on the part of the federal government, and not just look at the internal problem here, because you might be unwittingly cutting some bigger problems from outside when you stick to this kind of attitude of just saying that you are banning an entity like Twitter. And Twitter is not just a business concern, it's an American concern. Thank you.
Oh, interesting you put it that way. And if anything, I think over the past few days, Twitter has even become more popular. You hear a lot of older ones asking, what is this Twitter? And I imagine if that suspension is lifted eventually, I can imagine what effect that will have on Twitter's business. But that aside, this began from the tweet that was, or it began with that tweet which was put out from the president's handle, which you see right there on the screen. It was actually the president speaking, and then this part was tweeted on the president's handle. And Twitter pulled this down because, I mean, it says it violates its rules and what have you. Now, essentially, this is Twitter saying that, well, if you look at their policy, for example, they remove spam, abusive or harmful content, terrorism or violent extremism content, hate speech, and the rest. This is where this all began from. Even though the government says, well, we're just disappointed it was deleted, that was not why we suspended Twitter. But looking at that message and looking at Twitter's policy, do you agree with Twitter's decision to pull down the tweet?
I think in context, what we have to get one thing right. Mr. President does not believe, he made the speech extempore. It was when the INEC officials went and briefed him on what they have been going through with respect to their facilities being destroyed, damaged, and what have you. And he came out to say, look, this country must not go to another war. In the last exercise, this was what we went through, this was what we went through, this was what we went through, and what have you. Should we go through that one again? It was in that context that Mr. President was speaking. And he actually kind of said, look, I will not allow this to happen again, and will do the needful. Twitter is coming from the background where choice of words, the attitude, the body language differ from what we understand here. Within the Nigerian context, Mr. President is not speaking anything strange. But coming from the background of Twitter, I think it's a bit it's not something they can tolerate, because you read a lot of meanings, underlying meanings into that. So I think the handlers of Mr. President Since the message has been sent out to the world, it was on television and everybody saw it. Why did they tweet it? Why did they have to tweet the message again? Why did they have to? Because our standards are not the same. And if you want to use a platform whose standard may not approve of the message you are trying to, send out, avoid that platform and use your own platform that will understand it. I personally, I understand what Mr. President is trying to convey to the Nigerian public. But for a body like Twitter, they will read more than what I ordinarily would. And I know Mr. President a little bit. I'm not claiming that I know him fully, but I know that if he's going to threaten a tribe, will he use such a public platform to go and do that? Of course, no. He's just admonishing us that we should not go to another war. But the style, the choice of words, a body like Twitter will not, it's like you go to England to study and you are used to a manner of speaking in Nigeria. When you get there and you begin to talk, they will tell you, no, you don't talk this way here. You have to talk like this, you talk with reservation and whatever. You can't say, for example, the first rule they will take you, don't say the law is. They will say, you say that it will appear, it seems. So they will teach you. So anybody who wants to tweet should be familiar with their rules, and then we'll make sure there's compliance with their rules. So this is going to be my own opinion. In addition to that, actually, several people actually reported that part of the tweet to Twitter. And so at some point they were examining it, then eventually they then came to that decision. So there were those who were offended by that. So that's why a part of what led to that as well. But still bringing it back here, perhaps those who then advised, because if you wanted to do something, we use such a platform. But you have persons who have perhaps made it a big deal, hence this decision and this announcement. Equally, some have responded, some executives, state governors, for instance. We saw the tweet appeal from Oyo State governor. Since we practice a federal system, can a state government say, well, if at the level of the center, they may have taken their decision, here in the state, we allow you to use it? Unfortunately, telecommunications is under the exclusive legislative list. And whatever the federal government does or the central government issues out, for example, no gateway to any state as far as all these facilities are concerned. And before you can get a license to do this, you have to go through NCC, which is the regulator. And above all, telecommunication or communication generally, not just telecommunication, because telecommunications is becoming old in the version. Communication generally is under the exclusive legislative list. So the state cannot or may not be able to do anything in this instance. So does that then suggest that, perhaps this may be hypothetical, if it were not on the exclusive list, can they then take that decision? Well, if it's on residual, then they can. But if it is on concurrent, whatever the central government rules will override any attitude or stand by the federating units. But I doubt if any nation will allow communication to be under the exclusive, under the concurrent or because of the security implications, a lot of issues will have to be contended with when it comes to communication generally, which I cannot be explaining on a platform like this. You know, several people equally suggested that this is perhaps an opportunity they've been looking for to ultimately regulate social media in the country. Because if they've said, well, begin to register all other social media platforms. What do you think about that? Well, I do not think I think the government should do more of constructive engagement, because overregulation has its own problem. I agree. In some excesses, you may have to bring in regulation. But if you engage the people and you allow competition to thrive in your system, regulation may play a secondary role. And what about the means to enforce? You are talking of something that has to do with network. How do you enforce it? And the moment you regulate and you are unable to enforce it, the law loses its respect, which is not good for any legal regime. I am not aware of any legal regime where social media has been regulated in the very strict sense, in the way and manner they are trying to put it. Yeah, there are some excesses, but I mean, you just have to balance it and maybe you need to liberalize the market more. Or, I mean, if somebody is saying something wrong, you try and put somebody out there to say something right. Or you look into development in technology that may be overriding some of these bad tweets and what have you. But to say you want to regulate it, it's going to call for a lot of digital forensic issues that may overwhelm the system, and you may not be able to achieve the objective of regulation, and then the law will fail. Thank you.
Same issue of engagement that you have mentioned a couple of times. Unfortunately, we can't take any tweets or read through the tweets to know what the young people are saying, because you know that to a large extent the number of people who a large population of Nigeria are the young people. Many of them are the ones that use the facility that has been suspended in Nigeria for now. And so in terms of engaging the young people to bring them into the system and have the kind of conversation we should be having, which many believe has been lacking over time, what would you suggest? How do you think as a nation we should be approaching that, especially from the federal government level?
Well, I think one of the major problems here in this country today, there was an interview granted by the British High Commissioner, I think sometimes around 23rd of May, published in the Vanguard. And she pointed out a lot of problems in this country, and one of which is that wide gap between the rich and the poor. I think the youth have been left behind. No work for them, then no work, no money, no shelter for most of them. They become glorified beggars. Something must be done to bridge the gap between the excessively rich ones and those who are left behind. In the past, they say, if you do not go to school, you will suffer. So go to school, do this, do that, you'll enjoy. People have gone to school, they have multiple degrees, no job. So what do you want them to do? So how would they not be tweeting rubbish or be sending hate messages and what have you? But if you bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, and this will take us to the kind of system we are running, which is very, very a bit, for example, Nigeria has no business running a presidential system. Nigeria has no business running it, in my own opinion, humble. We need an inclusive regime that will be less expensive so that attention can be on infrastructure developments and what have you, to engage the youths. Otherwise, like Baba Obasanjo will always tell us that the youth's problem is a time bomb, which will explode any moment. I think part of the manifestations is the kind of tweets that they have been dishing out, which we have found offensive. How would they not tweet offensive things when they are left behind? So I believe the country calls for a kind of reorganization in a way that the youth will be involved. And then the wide gap, the offensive gap between the rich and the poor will be brought to there will be some bridging of the gap.
Well, we're going to definitely get across you again, such that we will explore that part of the presidential system, the constitutional amendments going on, perhaps much later when it fits into your schedule. But thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, then. We're back in a moment. Don't go away. Well, I'd like to remind you that, yeah, you can email us. We can't let your feedback just can't afford not to take it. So you'll see that Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com. That's our email address. So you can get across to us on that platform. It's still a feedback mechanism such that we can hear what you think about whatever it is that we discuss. We have an email today, don't we?
Well, maybe we'll be able to take that one in a time not too far from now.
Let's see that.
Oh, yes, that's it. The Nigerian government has further shown its level of insensitivity by banning a platform where many Nigerians earn legitimate living. The failures in providing adequate security and reducing poverty has not been addressed with utmost urgency. Lives are being needlessly lost on a daily basis, yet this government sees the need to respond to a formal, harmless ban on Twitter while joyfully aggravating an already tense situation. That's from Bamidele.
And I think the talk about urgency is a concern for a lot of people, because if you look at the timeline, so the tweet was put out on Tuesday, it was deleted on Wednesday, and you had the federal government suspending Twitter on Friday, just how many days afterwards? And a lot of people are asking, how about we have that level of urgency as well?
To every issue.
To
every issue.
Because that was fast. I mean,
did we even give such urgency to COVID-19 in February last year?
I think it's a time a lot of people will be going back to past events to see
how
much urgency was given.
So perhaps they should improve the police response time too, to
is it the same police? Yeah. Is it the same police Mr. Oshini just spoke about?
Well, if government can respond quick, government has shown capacity that they can respond quick.
So with this government, nothing should be impossible.
Oh yes, right? Government has shown
if
capacity.
you can respond quick, then is that not what everybody is trying to achieve? In good time. So it could be relief and extend it to different agencies. But you know, people are asking what happens to government's social media aids with this one going on. Who knows?
True. Well, there are other platforms, really.
Yeah, but which one is the most dominant platform? How many people go to IG and go to email? Are they going to send email to everybody?
That was the time.
Well, don't forget, we'll look forward to at least reading your comments again tomorrow through our email. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kayode Okikile.
I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you for watching. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf.